Welcome to Young Gun, a podcast about Bryce Young and the Carolina Panthers. I am Dimitri Ravanos, a Bama grad. She is Lauren Brownlow, the biggest Panthers fan I know. And for the last time this season, we are taking a look at the team with a spotlight on its franchise quarterback. Lauren, let's get to the headline. This team ended its season, a season that was supposed to be the start of a brand new era.
Keeping the Saints out of the playoffs.
Oh, is that the headline we're going with? Yeah, I mean, why not? You got to find something.
You say I never look for something positive. You people are liars.
We want to thank our friends at Graffiti. They are the ones that bring you the show each and every week. 158 East Cedar Street in downtown Cary. And sure, the football season is over, but they still have 19 TVs to check out anything you may want to watch. They have weekly prizes every Sunday. They've got their bourbon pour specials going on as well. Blanton's at $10, Eagle Rare and Angel's Envy at $9, and then McKenna 10-year, Heaven Hill 7-year, and Buffalo Trace all at $8 a pour. Plus, there's axe throwing. There's the awesome art on the walls. That menu is changing all the time. Go on.
Yes, I went yesterday.
I saw you posting pictures of your delicious drink and your good time.
I told you I love my slushy alcohol drinks at Graffiti, and this time did not disappoint. It was some sort of vodka concoction called on Wednesdays we were pink. I had 2 of them.
I thought that you were just posting that because the drink was pink. I did not realize that was the name of the drink.
That is the name of the drink. I love their drink names. Graffiti's great. So yes, had a great time.
Might be this coming weekend the perfect time to go and have one of those drinks before you go see the Mean Girls musical.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Pre-game,
if
you will.
It's not how I can do it, unfortunately, because I'll be taking a 14-year-old with me. But I am very excited for that movie.
You can get the non-alcoholic. Well, they don't have a non-alcoholic version of that. They only had they had a blood orange slushy as well that you could add the alcohol to.
I see.
But it wasn't made with the alcohol like the other one.
I see. 158 East Cedar Street in downtown Cary. Check out our friends at Graffiti today. Lauren, does it even matter if Bryce was too short this week?
I mean, no, it really didn't. Although I will say, I've told you this, like there are games where he does look tiny to me. And this was one of them.
When I was looking at the stats in the box score, it seemed like a much bigger divide in runs versus passes than what it actually was. Like it ended up being like a 6-play difference because you got to count the sacks as dropbacks.
I watched the game this morning to get through the whole thing, but when I didn't sit down at Graffiti until it was like it was just start of the second quarter.
Yeah.
And it came on the screen that Bryce was 1 of 2 passing. And I'm like, I'm sorry, what? 15 minutes, he's attempted 2 passes?
Yeah. My son had a soccer game yesterday at the beginning of the game. So I looked down about maybe right at the beginning of the second quarter and saw the same thing. 2 passes.
And I'm like, huh.
At that point, I believe, and I could be wrong, at the point that I looked down, Chuba Hubbard was the entire offense.
Yes. And God love him.
Yeah.
I mean, he just ran his little butt off probably not little. He's a running back all season long. And I appreciate him for that. He was the lone offensive bright spot for me in a season filled with utter darkness.
It's interesting, right? Like I think Bryce had moments of bright spots, but Chuba was the only one.
He was the only constant.
And
really Miles Sanders looked a lot better in this game as well. Again, continuing to add fuel to the narrative that maybe he was banged up to start the season, which would explain some of his poor play, which also doesn't explain why they somehow made him the bell cow.
I was about to say, but his usage rate adds to the narrative that maybe they paid way too much money.
I mean, I'm not going to dispute that. I agree with that. But I do think me included and others were maybe a little unfairly harsh on him, but it was the coach's fault in part because they're the ones who kept trotting him out there for like 30 carries a game when he clearly wasn't able to give them that.
So the headline is that the Panthers end the season on a 2-game scoreless streak. But did this feel like a 1-2-3 Cancun kind of game to you?
Oh, do you mean in the sense that they're just trying to get through it?
Yeah, like I don't think they played like aimless or like they were trying to get.
No, not necessarily. Especially like again, look, shout out to the defense. Because how? Like, what psychological fortitude you showed all year long to continue to go out there and play pretty damn well with that offense. You have no hope almost from the moment the game is kicked off.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't necessarily, the game felt so familiar. That's the other part. So, like, it was hard for me to, like, look at this game and be like, oh, it really felt like they were just mailing it in because it looks so similar to all of the other games.
It literally looked like 2 of the last 3 games, right? Like, it was this slow offensive drudge like the Atlanta game.
Tabor, in that sense, I will say maybe him was a little bit of the get me to Cancun part, which, again, fair. But, like, my thing was like, okay, you're playing Bryce Young in this situation. I recognize that the O-line is terrible and you probably don't want to have to pass a lot. But at the same time, like, why is he playing if you're just going to continue to hand it off over and over again?
I don't disagree with you. The thing that I find interesting about the idea that maybe the coaching staff is at a 1-2-3 Cancun sort of thing, I think given how much money is still going out to Frank Reich, I think that coaching candidates might be asked to keep a big number of these guys. And really, I think Tabor's going to be here next year. He seems very popular.
I don't mind him.
No, I don't either. He seems very popular amongst the players. I don't know if you saw that survey The Athletic did where they asked people anonymously about coordinators in the league, and he was far and away the most popular special teams coordinator.
I told you, like, I was a little surprised because, I've been very critical of the Panthers special teams at times. I will say this. I did think they've been overall better this year.
I would agree.
Return and coverage. Like, they're finally doing something in return, except for just me praying for them not to drop the football on a punt return. So, like, that's nice. I think they've gotten better. But, yeah, and like, the players like him. I think we talked about this. The fact that he is honest. Is nice. Sometimes it can be a little bit like very matter of fact honesty. Like he was asked about the touchdowns getting called back. Yes, there were multiple touchdowns called back. I have trauma.
There was the moment after his first game where he referred to one of the players as employee and then his jersey number.
Oh, I like that. I mean, like, that's what they kind of are. So like, and I think that any player likes a coach that will be honest with them.
Yeah.
Not humiliate them in public and treat them like adults. And he does that. So I can see why he would be popular. Very matter of fact, but he was asked about the touchdowns coming off the board and it's like, what did that do or whatever? He's like, well, we didn't score on those. So it really hurt you there.
Took 6 points off the board.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, can't really argue with anything that he just said. Okay.
All very accurate. Please take the time to like and subscribe, not just to this show, but also everything that OG Triangle Media does. We are putting out shows all the time, and the fact that you take the time to watch, to listen, to consume them however you do means a lot to us. If you would then take that extra second to write a review, because that is what helps put, whether it's Young Gun, Ovius and Giglio, Picks and Pizza, you name it, your reviews tell the algorithm this is something worth putting in front of new eyeballs, and it helps us out tremendously. All right, so Scott Fitterer is out.
What did he do?
Yeah, I don't know if you heard. So I guess it makes sense. And again, you cannot always count on DaveTepper to do what makes sense, but it makes sense that the coaching search is on hold until the GM search is finalized.
Well, the great news, though. Why? I mean, I guess I can kind of see why, but at the same time, it's like, you can't do that because now other people are firing their coaches.
Yeah.
Like, literally, there's another vacancy in the NFC South right now, which they had to know. And I was assuming that they did that to kind of get ahead of it. I guess we did see the news last week that DaveTepper is employing this kind of like sports consulting company or something.
It's very strange.
It's like the new search firm.
Yeah, I guess this would be the pro version of a search firm. And this is the same group that helped him find a Charlotte FC manager.
Which,
I think, did this group own... Did they own a Premier League franchise at one point?
Chelsea, I believe they like either owned or worked with it or something like that. They have some relationship with Chelsea, but they've also worked with like pro football teams here.
Football or football? Because
football with O's.
Oh,
so like the 49ers, I think was one of them. That was one at least. And I was like, okay, clearly they've done some nice things.
Right. I'm really worried because when you sent me that text, my first thought was,
your first instinct was
of course,
bad.
This idiot hired a soccer firm.
Honestly,
dealt with a football search.
And I get it, but at the same time, I'm like, you know what? The fact that he's asking for any intervention at all, is a good sign, I guess.
We'll circle back on the coaching search, the GM search. I mean, it's just getting started. It does not help to speculate. So let's you and me fast forward a bit. What kind of help do you want to see the Panthers prioritize for Bryce? Is it offensive line or is it wide receiver first?
I think it's offensive line.
It seems like that is the obvious place to start. I guess my concern is when you look at the top free agents.
Are there not a lot of good picks? Are there not a lot of players that'll be available that they could have drafted to help? Weird.
Jonah Williams and Tyrone Smith are far and away your best options, and they are 30 and 33 respectively. Now, it doesn't necessarily...
Are they tackles?
They are. Doesn't Jonah Smith play in the interior? Or I'm sorry, Jonah Williams, doesn't he play on the interior in Cincinnati, I believe?
I'm sure.
Yes,
but either way, I'm saying like you need a tackle.
Yes.
Like a left tackle.
Yeah.
Specifically.
Agreed. And then you look at wide receivers, the free agent class is much more fruitful. I mean, T. Higgins, Michael Pittman Jr., Mike Evans.
Look, I'm not trying to like break down a football team by comparing it to fantasy football, because guess what? You know what? In fantasy, you don't have to draft an O-line.
Right.
Okay. So it doesn't matter. You can draft some quarterback that throws a ton of touchdowns but gets sacked a lot because it doesn't matter. In the real football, you can't do that.
Right.
Okay. So the point is, but in fantasy, you do prioritize your receivers a little less once you get like your one or two guys. You kind of have to, because there's a lot of them.
Right. And this team does not have its one or two guys.
And in real football, you can do that too, because you can find talent. Now, has this team been all that great at like finding talent to fill out its receiving core? I mean, I don't know. There are some interesting pieces, I guess, that could potentially be like down the bench players, but I don't think you want like Steven Sullivan being a central part of what you're doing offensively you know what I mean? Like, so you need to kind of shore things up there, but offensive line is the first priority. I mean, he was sacked 62 times this year, and it felt like more. Right.
So they're going to have $47 million of cap space, and that does not account for re-sign. Right. So you probably only get a crack at
Burns?
One big free agent. Luvu.
Shark. They could let Burns walk.
They could let them all walk. I mean, I'm not saying that's the best course of action, but you can't dismiss it.
No, you can't. I don't know what to do with Burns. I don't pretend to have a good answer on that. If they re-signed him, I'd be glad, but at the same time, at what cost?
Mm-hmm.
Luvu, I think, has to be re-signed. He and Hubbard are literally probably the only things that made people smile on a consistent basis this year. Derek Brown, to get 100 tackles as a defensive.
Agreed.
I don't know what to make of that.
You know, this is the thing. When it's out of the ordinary with this team, my gut says not good. But I don't know enough to say that's not good.
Except like the defense did play well. But he played fantastic this year. It was really nice to see him like around. Like, as much as we complained about Icky taking a step back, I know I did. It was really nice to see him like round into that's why he is that dude.
I think whoever gets hired as GM is going to have to present some sort of plan for, okay, if we trade back in the draft to accumulate more picks, what do we do and where? I mean, at least logic would tell you that's what a GM candidate should do. And the reason, even though I think that someone like T. Higgins completely changes what you think of BryceYoung as a passer, same with Mike Evans, I think that in recent history, you have seen, like, look at Amon-Ra St. Brown in Detroit. That was a fourth-round pick.
And that's kind of my point, right? Is that, like, and I'm not sitting here saying, like, you want to try to find the hidden gems, because...
But see, that's a receiver, they don't seem to be hidden gems. It's just much deeper than ever before.
That's part of it as well, right? Is, like, you have guys that fall for whatever, maybe it's their size, maybe it's their whatever, and you can get guys that will be freaking gamers for you. I mean, Steve Smith, it's a while ago, obviously, but he was, like, what was he, a fourth-round pick? I think that's right. Fourth-round pick, and a lot of people didn't think he would be a receiver in this league. I mean, he ended up being one of the best. They saw something in him. So if their scouting department, I mean, who knows what that's going to look like?
Right.
That's the other part of it, I guess. But, you know, if they can find some guys, I'm not as worried about that. They'll figure that out. I mean, Chark kind of came into his touchdown taken off the board. That took time off my life. I'm certain of it, because I was like, be for real.
Right.
Did that really just happen?
Are we 100% comfortable saying he came into his own, or did he just have a good game late in the season? Because
no, you're right.
He got targeted more than anyone else in this game and only caught 2 balls.
No, you're right. I mean, I don't know. I mean, and that was the Bryce, I thought, looked a little... He wasn't as bad as he's been in some games. Sure. He wasn't as good either, for a lot of reasons, but he also wasn't as accurate, I didn't think. And so it was like, you combine that with the fact that he's barely ever throwing it. It just was like a whole mess.
No,
it was a whole mess.
Yeah, absolutely. Please take the time to watch us on Origin Sports TV. If you are watching this on YouTube or hearing it on your favorite podcast platform on Tuesday when it comes out. Tonight is our last airing on Origin Sports TV. So do your part. Watch the show.
I took a shower today.
Look at you.
Not that I haven't in other shows. I'm just saying. I made it a point to okay, we're coming in studio. Gonna look nice.
It has been a while since you and I have been in studio together.
I know, for various reasons, yes.
I don't know what I did, but I just lost sound in these headphones. Joe is going to be very upset with me.
Oh, did you fix it just there?
Nope.
Oh, well.
But let's pretend I did.
Okay, great.
All right. Check out Origin Sports TV every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. You've got it on Xumo, Roku, Samsung TV Plus, and Amazon Freevee. Let's go back to the defense for a second, because the two headliners are Frankie Luvu and Brian Burns. I believe it was Pro Football Focus that rated each of them probably the best available free agent at their position.
Okay, and that's important too, right? Like when you're thinking about whether or not you're going to re-sign Burns. I mean, I get it.
I do wonder, though, how much is just re-signing these guys going to eat up the ability to make any changes, which this team needs?
Luvu less than Burns, I think, which is why I think that's the guy I try to make sure gets re-signed personally. Maybe I'm just biased because I very much like Frankie Luvu. It's not that I don't like Brian Burns. He seems lovely. But Brian was a little inconsistent at times, a little up and down. I don't think he had the kind of year he would have wanted to have. I mean, he played really well at times. Just kind of, I mean, it's hard to blame him. This team was terrible. Like, I'm not, I'm not mad. It's just more of like what do you feel good and certain that if you invest in this guy, he's going to produce for you year in and year out, and you're going to be glad that you did it. And I'm not 100% on that. I like him a lot. I think if they want to give him one, he certainly earned it. But at the same time, if they decide it's not worth it, then I get it too.
I go back to something that Scott Fowler said on the talk through last week, which was comparing this team to the other two teams that he puts as that
the worst,
yeah, in Panthers history. And he talked about that 2001
Clausen and Seifert
team.
Yeah, no, it's Clausen and Seifert. Yep. 2002.
2002.
Yes.
Yeah. Look, that team was bad, but you could see the pieces, like there was potential for that to come together.
I agree with that.
So
and same with 2010, by the way, at times, although that was a little bleaker than this one because of Jimmy Clausen.
I think that Clausen, like realizing that it was time to move on from Delhomme and then getting Clausen really kind of dampened a lot of enthusiasm for the future.
Let me be fair here.
Yeah.
I probably felt as bleak, if not bleaker, when that move was made, when they traded up. Will I ever get over it? No.
Right.
Traded up with the Patriots.
Right.
Was that for Jimmy? Or I know they
was
traded
that for Jimmy
or
was
Armonte.
That for Tuber? Yeah.
They traded up for both, I believe. But they traded
Edwards,
with the Patriots to get Armonte Edwards, and they traded up to get Clausen, I think. I don't know. I could have it wrong. Either way, trading with the Patriots, you're always going to get, especially in that era. What are you kidding me?
Right.
You're going to get fleeced, and they got fleeced. And I felt as little hope after that, like during that season or after. Like now, obviously, you see some of the like foundational guys that ended up taking them even later on like a Super Bowl run. But like you didn't, I mean, you weren't seeing that then.
No, absolutely not. And you go back to 2002, if you could see in that team the potential.
The fruits of the playoff and Super Bowl run.
And not only that, like the results of that season. So in that season, you saw the seeds, and then the fruit of that season, the draft pick is Julius Peppers. Like, I don't think you have that coming.
Exactly. And you knew Chris Winkie was close to retirement age anyway.
That's right.
God bless him. I mean, they've had worse quarterbacks. Trust me.
Oh, for sure.
I have, like, even though that team was terrible, they have had worse quarterback play. I mean, I have seen it.
Here is all you need to know, right? You could still sometimes go out and see a Chris Winkie jersey. You will never go out and see a Derek Anderson or
Derek Carr Panthers jersey.
Oh, I forgot about
or Chris Carr, excuse me, or David Carr.
David Carr, yeah.
Chris Carr. That's a completely different family. This is what the season has done to my brain. How many times did David Carr get sacked that one season that everybody was like, it was more than 60?
Oh yeah,
was easily. Like 69?
It was. Oh, was it? That would be hilarious.
I think I was close to that. Yeah. I know. Nice. Well, but I mean, Bryce was not far behind him.
No, he was not. I mean,
in one more game, I guess, but still.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess that's not insignificant, but even still, the difference between 59 and 69, it's sort of like, what's the difference between 1 billion and 2 billion at that point?
Right. And think about all the hits Bryce took that, I'm sure he would have been fine getting sacked. It might have hurt less.
I mean, Joe Ovius texted us last night that kind of the big win of this season is for all of the hits he took. He never was significantly injured.
He never got hurt. He never missed time due to injury. I don't care what lie you're trotting out there and attempting to masquerade as truth about the whole ankle, the high ankle sprain. Like, we're all dumb. I'm not dumb.
Lauren, welcome. Welcome, friend.
Well, you know I've been here.
But on the show, when I said, hey, we all think they faked this injury of his, right? You told me don't go there.
Because I thought, how would they be? Remember when they said they confirmed it the next week? I was on board.
Yeah.
When he basically was like, I don't know what my injury was. Like, come on. But lie better. If you're going to do a ruse, like, actually get everyone on board. You're so lazy with it. Like, you just think we're all so stupid, and we're not all that stupid.
Frank Reich does strike me as the type of guy that would say he's going to do a ruse.
Right. Ooh, we're going to pull. Hey, Bryce, you're in on it?
Yeah.
Just say you don't even remember when you got hurt.
That's right.
You're bad at this, dude. You're not good at tricking people. Yeah. Sorry. But anyway, so he never got hurt for real, because we know that wasn't a real injury. Thank you so much.
Let's talk about Bryce going forward, because as a GM is hired, as a coach is hired, the question is going to be asked, how do you sell Bryce to these candidates? Because whether or not you like him, whether or not you think he should be the future of this team is stuck with him.
Yes.
So
100%. Yes.
So what is it, Lauren? Like, I cannot divorce my emotion from Bryce. Why should you want BryceYoung to be your quarterback? Because he's an adorable little scamp and I love it. That's why. But what would you say to coaching candidates that have some concern about a 5'10", 5'11" quarterback?
I would probably end up going around the league and showing them pictures of dudes that have played starting quarterback for teams that won football games.
Okay.
And go, okay, for real? Like, you think that guy's worse than... Get out. That's what I might say. Because, like, I'm sorry. Look, I'm not sitting here saying that, like, I know why there's concern. I'm not saying that I don't. I have concern. I'll be honest with you. Now, that doesn't mean I'm, like, out or I'm ready to just move. I mean, obviously, you can't move on anyway, even if you want to. But I'm not saying that I'm there. I am just saying that, like, I don't know. Because that's the other part of it is, like, how do you even evaluate him if you can't get an offensive line that's competent?
Yeah.
How do you put him in a position to be successful? I don't know how you do all of those things, but you know what they hire head coaches for? To do hard things.
Agreed.
So, like, you can kind of miss me a little bit with all of the whining and hand-wringing about, like, who would want that job? I don't know. Lots of people. Yeah. Lots of people who've worked their asses off their entire lives probably and love a challenge. If you don't want the job because of BryceYoung, go. Yeah. Bye.
That's something that Fowler said on the talk through last week that, like, I thought, okay, I guess I get it, but, like, I kind of don't.
NFL
which was
head coach? I'm sorry.
Yeah. So
what happened to people liking that job?
So
let me just put that out there.
You know, I'm with you. Scott Fowler said that what he is more worried about than BryceYoung is that
Tepper.
People are going to look at Tepper, right? Yeah. And say the job security is really hard. But I would argue that also people are going to look at DaveTepper the way you look at a coaching offer from Auburn, right? Like, you're still going to get that money. Like, there is nothing about Frank Reich that is now hurting for money.
That's the thing. Like, the coach is not the one that hurts in this interaction. I mean, is it hard to succeed? Yeah, but, like, if you like money, it's not.
Right.
If you like money, you're going to do great here.
Right.
Because you're probably going to get a lot of it guaranteed to you, no matter how terribly you do.
I have talked to multiple people in and around the league, reporters and business types that believe that Tepper is more likely to pay whatever is necessary to get who he wants than he is to go down to, like, choice 7, 8, or 9.
100%. Now, is there a part of me that thinks choice 7, 8, 9 might be better for the future of this franchise, especially if it's a guy who actually wants to be here?
Yeah.
Yes, there is. Also, because I'm really kind of, like, not to be all get off my lawn, but like I was alluding to, I'm kind of over this talk of, like, oh, well, who would want this job? Well, you know what? How about they hire someone who does then? Because that's a dream job for a lot of people. And can you imagine, like, if the players whined as much about, like, oh, I don't want to do my job. Can you imagine how the fans would react? But we're all just supposed to, like, shrug our shoulders when a coach doesn't want a job. Go cry more. Like, are you serious?
Look at the way we reacted to Eli Manning his first couple of years in the league because of what he pulled with the Chargers.
Exactly. And we're going to let these coaches sit here and whine about, like, who would want that job? I don't know. Lots of people who like money and or like challenges.
Well, here's what I will say. Here's one thing I've heard that I don't think you can get away from is the Panthers are counting on the size and dimensions and talent set too. That's really important.
Yeah.
Of a quarterback to work as the number one pick, and we've only seen it work at that level one time. Drew Brees. And great, he wasn't the number one pick, but it has worked to the level of if he were coming out, you would say, okay, I get it, number one pick. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
You mean as a tiny quarterback?
Yeah. As a guy that size that
I guess Russell a little bit but Russell's different.
Yeah.
Russell's not really the same as either guy. Russell Wilson, yeah.
So yeah, that's true because Russell is just a whole
Russell's a scrambler on a level that neither of them.
Right.
Bryce has shown. I've told you, I wish Bryce would scream. And during the game, I'm literally screaming, please run.
Yeah. I mean, he had that 20-yard run in this game.
But he's not Russell in that way, no.
Right. So that I totally understand.
Yeah.
I looked at The Athletic this morning before we started recording, and it is, as we are recording, it is Black Monday. By the time you hear this, there could be more coaches fired than we even know.
They fired Arthur Smith at like 12:01.
Yeah.
And every single picture of him that I saw of him was the same as any other I've ever seen, which looks like he left the oven on. Yeah. Or he thinks he did. And he's like, did I?
See, even in his happiest, pictures of him look like he's received a pink slip right before they took that picture.
Yeah, or like he just got told something very awkward and can't like tell anyone. Like literally the moment before the picture of like.
Right. He looks like a pipe fitter that just heard the union is on strike and he supports them, but he does have to buy Christmas presents.
He's like, yeah, he's like doing math in his head sometimes, which explains a lot.
Yeah, 100%.
Bless him.
So The Athletic projected every opening who it would be filled by except the Carolina Panthers because the author's reasoning was DaveTepper is too hard to predict.
I bet he likes that.
I'm sure he does.
Which is annoying. I mean, I guess he is. And I guess like there's this whole notion out there of like who would want it.
Well, I think that's what makes the situation hard to predict.
Right. For sure. And like I get it, but like I know why the Atlanta job is more enticing to some people. It's surprisingly a bit more stable.
Right.
Which
right.
It is.
I also think that
they've got a better situation.
Yep.
Personnel wise.
I mean, what we know right now is Atlanta and Washington have opened in the last 24 hours. Before that, it was Los Angeles, Las Vegas, and Carolina.
You know what, Dimitri? That's weird that Washington opened. How many games they win this year?
4.
Huh. That's a lot. Is that a lot more than 2 or like, because I remember I was told all year, like how much better things would be if the Panthers had a different quarterback.
Oh, Lauren, again.
Well, but you know what, Dimitri?
Welcome to the Crusade.
Doubled the wins.
Yes.
Awesome.
and
listen,
Lauren, hang on.
Sam had a rough year for a lot of similar reasons that Bryce did, to be honest with.
But if I may, Lauren, did Bryce get benched because of it? Because Sam did. Well, fair. Fair, touche.
Yes, he did.
Touche. I guess we can't sit here and say, oh, he definitely was not hurt and then pretend he was not benched for a game.
Ron Rivera probably just pretended Sam Howell didn't wear a tie on the flight or something.
Do you think there's a possibility that Ron Rivera ends up back here?
No.
Okay. Whew,
no, and look, you know what? They could do worse.
Oh, sure. But they also could do so much better.
I can't watch. Look, I like Ron the person.
Yeah.
I can't watch him manage a late game anymore.
No, I agree.
You know what? It's been the one thing it's been nice to see this year is like getting to the end of a half with timeouts.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that's nice. It's not something I'm used to still.
I go back to what I said early in the year. I guess
and Ron is still doing it in Washington. Bless him.
Yeah.
The bad game management.
I'll go back to what I said early after Frank Reich got fired, which was if you look at everybody that got hired as a head coach this offseason, who worked out with the rookie quarterbacks? It was the ones that accepted who their quarterbacks were and let them go do what they do best. And look, he's a Bama guy, so obviously I'm a huge D'Amico Ryans fan. I think
I like D'Amico.
I could not have predicted he would have been this good in his first season as a head coach. Certainly CJ Stroud helped, but I think what helped CJ Stroud was D'Amico Ryans being comfortable with who CJ Stroud is.
Yeah. Yeah,
that is what BryceYoung needs in a coach.
For sure. And like, does CJ Stroud have some more talent than BryceYoung? Yes.
He definitely has a bigger arm. I think was in
that is important.
Yeah.
Like it is.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think in hindsight, would the Panthers have taken Stroud over Young if they knew what they know now? Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that necessarily, but you can't go back in time. And I don't think you can look at this season and say the team was a failure because of BryceYoung. There is something to build on with the guy. You just have to be committed to it.
Yeah. I mean, listen, he managed to make it through this season without dying.
And that's not nothing, damn it.
It's not. considering. I like who he seems to be as a person.
Sure.
For the most part. But yeah, I mean, I have to look, people have been asking, so I'm going to say it. Like, yeah, I agree with you. I think I think I would feel better about the future if they had drafted him at quarterback instead of Bryce Young. Do I think Bryce is a disaster? No, I don't know that yet. Do I think that Stroud would have made things significantly different this year? No.
Yeah.
Like, no, I don't.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I'm not saying that they would have only won 2 games, but do I think anything significant is changing with this team? Do I think they make a no? I don't think he's good enough to even do that. I mean, sorry, no offense, he's not Superman. Like, he couldn't even move the ball against the Panthers.